Hey everyone, today we're diving deep into one of the biggest legal and political stories of our time. Donald Trump's hush money conviction and the ongoing battle to determine its fate. A Manhattan judge has just rejected Trump's bid to overturn the conviction, despite his legal team trying to use a recent Supreme Court ruling on presidential immunity to argue their case. This decision is monumental, not just for Trump, but for what it means about holding presidents accountable in a system designed to balance power, justice, and governance. Let's break this down piece by piece because there's a lot to unpack here. Let's rewind for a moment and start with the basics. Back in May, Trump was convicted on 34 felony counts of falsifying business records. This all ties back to a $130,000 payment made to adult film actress Stormy Daniels just before the 2016 presidential election. The payment was meant to buy her silence about an alleged affair with Trump, which could have been politically damaging if it came out during the campaign. Prosecutors argue that this payment was part of a larger scheme to influence the election by preventing the public and voters from hearing Daniels' claim. But before we get into the details, hit the subscribe button, like this video, and leave your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for your support. Trump, on the other hand, has repeatedly denied the affair and insists the payment wasn't about swaying voters. According to him, it was purely a personal matter. But a Manhattan jury didn't believe that. They convicted him of falsifying business records to cover up the payment, making this the first time in U.S. history that a former president has been convicted of a felony. Now, fast forward to this summer when Trump's legal team got what they thought was a golden opportunity. The Supreme Court issued a landmark ruling on presidential immunity. They decided that ex-presidents cannot be prosecuted for actions that fall under their official duties while in office. While this ruling wasn't directly related to Trump's hush money case, his lawyers saw a chance to challenge his conviction. Here's what they argued: some of the evidence used against Trump during the trial. Things like his financial disclosure forms, testimony from former White House aides, and even his social media posts was tied to his time as president. Since those actions were arguably part of his official duties, his legal team claimed that evidence should have been protected under presidential immunity. Without it, they argued the conviction wouldn't hold up. But the judge, Juan Merchan, wasn't having it. In his ruling, he acknowledged that some of the evidence might be connected to Trump's time in office, but he ultimately concluded that it didn't matter. Why? Because the case didn't hinge on that evidence. Merchan said the prosecution's case was so strong, built on overwhelming proof of falsified records, that any errors in admitting the disputed evidence wouldn't have changed the outcome. Essentially, he ruled that even if the Supreme Court's immunity protections applied, it wouldn't make a difference here. This decision has, unsurprisingly, infuriated Trump's team. His communications director, Stephen Chung, blasted the ruling, calling it a blatant violation of the Supreme Court's decision on immunity. He also argued that the case never should have been brought in the first place, calling it unconstitutional and demanding that it be thrown out immediately. But Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg, who led the prosecution, hasn't commented since the judge's decision. His office has been clear in the past, though. They believe this conviction should stand as a matter of principle and accountability. Now, let's talk about why this case is so extraordinary, right? Trump isn't just a former president. He's also the president-elect. In a matter of weeks, he'll be sworn in again as the 47th president of the United States, making him the first convicted felon to hold the office. This creates an unprecedented situation. How do you handle the legal fallout of a criminal conviction for someone who's about to lead the country again? The judge had originally scheduled Trump's sentencing for late November, but after his election victory, that date was postponed indefinitely. This was to give both sides, Trump's legal team and the prosecutors, time to figure out their next steps. Prosecutors have floated a few ideas to deal with this unprecedented situation. One option is to pause the case entirely until Trump leaves office in 2029. Another suggestion is to agree that no matter what, Trump won't face jail time. And then there's the most unconventional idea, closing the case without ever sentencing him, but leaving the conviction on his record. That last option is based on what some states do when a convicted person dies before sentencing. From their perspective, Trump's lawyers are framing this as a constitutional crisis. They argue that keeping the conviction alive disrupts the presidency itself and undermines the transfer of power. According to them, the case represents an unconstitutional attack on the executive branch, and they're fighting hard to get the conviction overturned entirely. But here's the thing. The prosecutors aren't budging. While they propose delaying sentencing or agreeing to no jail time, they're clear on one point: the conviction should stand. For them, this is about upholding the rule of law and ensuring that even someone in Trump's position is held accountable for their actions. And let's not forget, this isn't Trump's only legal battle. In just the past year, he was indicted in 4 separate cases. 2 of those federal cases about classified documents and efforts to overturn the 2020 election were dropped after his election win. There's also an election interference case in Georgia that's mostly on hold right now. In every one of these cases, Trump has denied any wrongdoing, calling them politically motivated attacks against him. So what happens next? Honestly, it's hard to say. Trump's legal team is still fighting tooth and nail to get the conviction thrown out. And this recent ruling from Judge Merchant is just one piece of the puzzle. At the same time, prosecutors are standing firm, trying to navigate this complex situation without setting a dangerous precedent. And in less than a month, Trump will take the oath of office, adding even more layers to an already tangled situation. This case isn't just about Trump's guilt or innocence. It's about bigger questions for our democracy. How do we hold leaders accountable while respecting the office they hold? What does justice look like when a president is involved? And where do we draw the line between personal actions and official duties? These are questions we've never had to grapple with before, and they're not going away anytime soon. So what do you think? Should Trump's conviction stand, or does his position as president-elect complicate things too much? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your take on this unprecedented situation. As always, I'll be following this story closely and bringing you updates as they happen. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you on the next one.